The aim of this video is to introduce digital collections of library to the greater Valparaiso University community and to increase awareness. When did the digitization project start in the library?
Digitization at Christopher Center started many years ago, even before I got here. I would say probably 2003 to 2004 when we moved in the building. That's really when we started digitizing resources. The project that I work on, Valpo Scholar, we started that project in March of 2011. And digitization efforts continue to this day and on that platform as well.
What was the process involved in digitization?
The process in which to digitize or to decide, how something or when something might be digitized usually begins with a conversation with our digitization committee. We decide on the various projects that we could do, and when we decide on which one is the next one to work on, we then work up a procedural document, which once that's complete, we will test with staff members, with student workers, and once we figure that out, once we feel like it's pretty efficient, that's when we'll usually let a student worker do the bulk of the manual labor on the project. So the student will do everything from prepping the resource for digitization for the scanning part, then actually do the scanning, then do the technical work to make sure that digital record has all of the metadata that it needs in order for it to be useful in the future. Once those records are completed, then it would be put in a workflow for putting on one of our two digital platforms, either Content EM or Valpo Scholar.
What was the importance of digitization?
The importance of digitization is there's a variety of reasons why we digitize. One of the reasons is because a lot of these materials have had no audience, so we have the only copy or one of the only few copies in existence, and by digitizing them, we've almost radically increased the potential for an audience. So these are people who would never have a chance to travel to Valparaiso University. These are people who would never be able to get an interlibrary loan scan from us for these materials. Now all of a sudden they're able to access these digitized materials pretty quickly through a simple Google search or through a simple internet search. It's a very easy thing to do now, but also it's a very impactful thing to do. In addition to that, print resources have proved to be very viable resources as far as preserving longevity of the resource itself. Resources can last up to 500, 600 years if treated properly. However, there's still a limit to those resources. 500, 600 years does not mean that they're going to be there forever. So digitizing is an attempt to maybe invest in another way of preserving those resources for the indefinite future.
What software and hardware were used in digitization?
It varies depending on the project, and with the torch, that first big project we did, there were several years that were on microfilm, and then we'd had bound volumes of years of the physical papers of the torch. And because of the size of the torch, we had to use our Book-Eye scanner. It's our overhead scanner, and the software for the Book-Eye is Opus FreeFlow. For the yearbooks, the Epson scanner, it's a flatbed scanner. It's really good for graphics. The software for the Epson is Silverfast.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of digitization?
There are many advantages to digitizing. Obviously, you can preserve a resource, a particularly fragile resource, while at the same time rapidly expanding their audience. So instead of having occasional people physically touch it and potentially damage it, now fewer people are going to be touching physical resources. Instead, they're going to be interacting with the digital equivalent. And then on top of that, you're going to have more people having access to that because an infinite amount of copies have been created once you digitize something. Some of the disadvantages, though, are particularly those print resources that have actually a different feel and a different interaction and a different just mission when they were created. They're just getting interacted with a lot less. And as a result, the physical nature of the information, the actual physical nature of it is getting a little bit lost. And as an indirect impact, the physical library doesn't get visited as much because there is not as much of a need for interaction with physical resources. What I have up here is is a platform that we have called Content EM, or what we call it publicly as digital collections. And this is one of our oldest digitization platforms that we have. This platform we typically use for things that have an image-based appeal. So these old school ledgers, these are resources, another reason why we can't. And so when you're talking about a print-based or a text-based document, it's hard to describe how these words, or even what these words are since they're written in cursive. It's hard to put that in, it's hard to figure that out in an easy way. So that's one reason why we just decided to scan in the visual and let our users take their best guess as to what things might mean, but also instead of us trying to describe it, they could just see it themselves. On this platform, we also have the university yearbooks. So this is particularly useful because in many times our newspaper does not necessarily have a lot of visually based history. So the Beacon provide a lot of other picture resources, but like the Torch as well, these pictures are chosen by the students. So how the students lay this out shows how important it might be to them versus how we as staff might want to position them. If we're doing a random image gallery of student life, well, we might not pick the same pictures as students might. So that's why it's important to preserve these things as designed, because they were designed by the students themselves.